Phil, I got one for you. Here's one that people are going to have to deal with coming sooner than later. Right now, I'm wearing my Plod Note Pen. I know they're not a sponsor of the podcast or me, unless they want to.
Nope.
But I got this thing, and it's an AI note taker.
Yeah.
So it just runs and it listens. It holds the conversation on the pen itself. And on the back end, of course, AI can do all this stuff. And it can, if I was in a Zoom meeting and it was listening in, it could tell me all the stuff. Oh, this is what Adam is supposed to do in post meeting.
Yeah.
Here is the checklist of acts he should do, so on and so forth. It can do all that. So now think about what rules are we going to put in place now?
Yeah.
When this is hanging on my necklace.
Yeah.
Next thing, they're going to be part of your AirPods.
Or
the
your
kids walk
glasses.
around with an AirPod or your glasses. I could wear it on my wrist and you wouldn't even know. What guidelines or safety rail guards are we going to have to put in for schools for wearable AI? Because this doesn't have to connect to the network to work.
Right.
Whenever it gets plugged into the network, that's when it'll upload.
Yeah.
So once again, what are the rules now? What are the rules? Or how do things change?
Yeah.
What questions do we need to ask around this?
That in itself is a great question, but that kind of goes along with the old banning and stuff like that's going around. And I know two things on that is, like, our district has been really good about not banning, but putting some guidelines in place and say no cell bell to bell with cell phones, but the kids can have them in between classes. But our governor, on the other hand, is wanting to create legislation because the state next to us already has the legislation that bans cell phones. So even though we've got a pretty good thing working for our district, our teachers actually like it, we may have to change our way of doing things because now the state law says you have to do it this way. And that can affect the things that we've been thinking about. Is it can affect our students. A lot of times our students will use their cell phones as a digital hall pass. They scan into school that way. And now if a cell phone's banned, now we have to do attendance the old-fashioned way, paper and pencil and all this. And we're not getting good data and metrics out of that to be able to find out who our students are that are at risk because they're not showing up to school because it takes so long to tally up all the tally marks on the paper. We're going in circles, I think.
They're just thinking cell phones make focus bad.
Yes.
Goodbye cell phones. And back to that, having the right people in the conversation and not just unilaterally deciding that this is the best course of action. And I've seen several school districts where either the state or the school district has made a law or a rule about cell phone usage and not included students. Yep. And you immediately start seeing feedback from students and parents about what about in this scenario? What about in this scenario? And we can, especially now, since the cell phone is the kid's most direct lifeline to their parents during the school day. I think back in the day, if something changes, sports is canceled or something, and then all of a sudden I've got 20 kids who are in line to use the phone, and then the office is overwhelmed and kids down the hallway. So, I mean, there are a lot of impacts that, if you don't have everybody in the room to kind of mention all the impacts and all the places it reaches, it can blow up.